all my viewers. I am so glad that you are always here watching, and I am very glad that you are so supportive. And thank you for being with us as my friends here in YouTube platform. So today I am sharing you about refusing to compromise. Uh, this term meaning uh, we have our conviction, we have our total reliance to the one who created us. So we must refuse to compromise to the world system. Now, in the time of Daniel, Prophet Daniel, Daniel was in the kingdom of Babylon, in the time of King Nebuchadnezzar, and it was also in the time of Darius. But in this time, the king was Darius. So it is found in Daniel chapter 6, verse 4 to 7. It says, at this, the administrators, the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, this man said, we will never find any basis for change charges against this man, Daniel, unless it has something to do with the law of his God. Uh, in the life of Daniel, Daniel was so full of integrity. His heart was full of integrity, and because of that, those officers in Babylon that has invaded him, they wanted Daniel to be removed in his position. It's because they want to have recognition of the king. But Daniel, because Daniel was full of integrity, God trusted him, and Daniel was one of the administrators in the kingdom of King Darius. And it says here that they find or they tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could not find corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. So Daniel was not corrupt person. He was not a corrupt officer. He was not a corrupt administrator during the reign of Darius, the king Darius. So those officers who invade him wanted to have grounds of charges against him, but they were unable to do so. And finally, this man said, we will never find any basis for charges against him, against this man, unless it has something to do with the law of his God. So it's because the law of God is different from the law of the land. So the law of God in the time of Daniel is this law being given by God to Moses. And the law in the Persian Empire or the Babylonian Empire is different. It's because in the Persian Babylonian Empire, their worship is to the idols, or their worship is to the god of their their god is different from the God of Daniel. The God of Daniel is the God who created the heaven and earth, who gives life. But the God in Babylon or in Persian Empire, their God is idols, or their God is those cannot speak, those statues, those statue of men. So that's why Daniel or the officers who invade Daniel, they finally find a ground of charges about how Daniel worship God, because Daniel worship the creator of heaven and earth, and those in the Persian Empire, they don't worship the creator of heaven and earth. They worship the idols or the works of their hands. So that is the problem. They find fault to Daniel. And then so the administrators and the satraps went as a group to the king and said, O King Darius, live forever. The royal administrators, prefect, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who pays to any god or man during the next 30 days is said to you, O king, shall be thrown into the lion's den. So uh, these administrators, these officers who invade Daniel, they they have invented something, or they create laws. They created laws that is against the practice of Daniel in God, in the worship of God. So they went to the king. They went to the king and they want the king to issue a decree. To issue a decree that to issue a decree and enforce that anyone who prays to any god or man during the next 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be thrown into the lion's den. So they want the king now to issue a decree regarding about the one who pray to God. So they issue the king that only King Darius will be their God, or King Darius will be worshipped. So he said that there must be a royal decree that anyone who pray or prays to any god or man during the next 30 days except to you, O king, shall be thrown into the lion's den. So will be thrown into the lion's den. Those who don't pray to King Darius, those who don't pay units to King Darius, must be thrown to the lion's den. So that was the law that they wanted to implement by King Darius in 30 days. So that's why it so happened that Daniel did not pray to King Darius, did not pray the God of Darius, but he prayed to God, the creator of heaven and earth. So it happens there. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had been before. So when Daniel heard about the decree, the implementation of the decree that was published in the news, then Daniel went to his house and he prayed to God. So he prayed to God 3 times a day. He prayed to God 3 times a day. And because of that, so the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve, continually rescue you." So it so happened that because Daniel continually praying to God, and he refused to compromise. He refused to compromise to the worldly system. He refused to compromise the plans of his companions there in the palace. He refused to do what they are doing. So he refused to worship the gods of Darius. He refused to bow down to the God of Darius. That was the law being implemented by those officials. So Daniel was brought to the king because he did not obey the decree or the commands of the king. He did not obey the law that issued by King Darius. So he was brought to the king, and he was thrown to the lion's den. And you know, if a person will be thrown to the lion's den, for sure, that person will be eaten by those lions. But what will happen? What happened to Daniel? At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. So King Darius hurried up and want to see what happened to Daniel. So he hurried up and went to the lion's den. He got up from his bed and went to the lion's den, and then he called Daniel. Then Daniel answered, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, O king." So Daniel was very loyal to God, and Daniel was so very prayerful to God, and Daniel trust God in all his life. He trusted God. So because of that, he said that my God sent his angel. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, king. So Daniel testified that God sent his angel. God sent his angels and shut up the mouths of the lions. Now this is very amazing thing. If we are loyal to God, when we are loving to God, when we continually serve God, when we continually worship God like Daniel. So what happened? When Daniel was thrown to the lion's den, those people who invade him, maybe they said to one another that, "Oh, Daniel was killed, or Daniel was eaten by the lion." But what happened? Daniel was not killed by the lions. Daniel was protected by God. God sent his angel to shut up the mouths of the lion, so that the lion cannot bite or cannot eat Daniel. So how God is faithful if you refuse to compromise the world system. So if we compromise, then God will cannot protect us. But if we refuse to compromise the world system, then God will protect us. So the life of Daniel is very important in our life today. Then King Darius wrote to all peoples, nations, and men of every language throughout the land, may you prosper greatly. Issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence to the God of Daniel. So here, it was reversed. The law that was passed by the other officers who invade Daniel now was reversed. It says there that Darius issued a decree that in every part of his kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. Who is the God of Daniel? The creator of heaven and earth, the one who gives us breath and life, the one who gives us eternal life as we believe in. So it says there that Daniel was, or the decree of King Darius was issued. The decree issued by King Darius is that people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. So people must fear and take reverence in the God of Daniel. So if we refuse to compromise, if we refuse to compromise and be loyal to God, and love God, serving Him faithfully, then this miracle that was happened to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or even in the life of Daniel. So those miracles that was received by Daniel or experienced by Daniel will be also experienced by us if we are truly trusting God. If we refuse to, compromise, if we refuse to compromise. It says, therefore, He is the God, the living God, and He endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. So that is the decree of King Darius, that all people in His kingdom must fear and take reverence of the God of Daniel. So must fear and take reverence of the God of Daniel. So this thing, refusing to the world system, we must refuse to compromise. Now we are living in this world. We are having our livelihood or our living. You know, the standard of God. The standard of God is not to compromise to the world system. So if we know uh, how to refuse to compromise, if we know how to refuse to compromise like Daniel, then we will be rewarded by God. We will be protected. We will be protected by God in whatever disaster, in whatever sickness, in whatever calamities that will happen in this world. So that's why it is very important. It is very important for us to trust God. It is very important for us to refuse to the world system, refuse to compromise. So we are taught by God to refuse to compromise of the worldly system, so that we will be qualified with God. We will be qualified when Jesus will come into this world. We are qualified to be with Him. We are qualified to be with God if we refuse to compromise in the worldly system. So that is all about what the topic that we are discussing, refusing to compromise. God bless each one.